Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I am your humble host, Mr. David Null, also known as Hawkeye Two Feathers, and I greet you with the love and the honor of the infinite creator. And I greet you with blessings to each and every one of you, to you, your friends, your family, and all of your relations. So, this particular video is a little bit of update on the Earth wobble, and I guess I want to do a little bit of bragging, but not much actually. I've noticed that there's some mainstream type of YouTube and other videos and other folks that are talking about the Earth wobble. And as any most of you will know that have watched my channel before, I've been discussing the Earth wobble for a long time, and so it's this that and that's simply, and I'm only raising my hand going, I told you so, simply because I've been making observations, and that each and every one of you has the opportunity every single night. Well, when it's really cloudy out, it's hard to do, but to check and see where the planets are, to find out where the constellations are. And I just wanted to bring a little, sorry about that. I got a nose itch. Somebody must be thinking about me. Old wise tale. Anyway, it's a cold 39 degrees right now at about 11:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the East Coast of the United States, down here in South Georgia. And it's colder than the whippersnapper, as some of them folks would say back in the day. And, it'd be like sitting in the mud and getting up on a cold day and just letting all the ice melt all over you, kind of thing. It's chilly out there. Well, so I just want for the Earth wobble, my observations since the last time I did an update is that the moon was over my house. I did an outside video showing, you know, best I could at nighttime with this video camera. Oh, and hi, Bob, to the AI out there. I just wanted to say hi to you. And I got my coffee, and let's have coffee, Bob. So that said, and thank you, Bob, for your participation in all of the AI stuff that you do. And I know it's gotten better. And thank you very much, Bob. Now, after thanking Bob the I wish to continue on and say that Orion is still very high in the sky. When I went out earlier this evening, I thought to myself, Orion still it is looks like it's late coming up. The other thing is Sirius, the dog star, is way high in the sky. I've noted that several times in the past where I've said, I could see the dog star down over here. And for whatever reason, it seems like the Earth it's almost like it's backed up. I don't know how to put it. And if we look at the planets, we would say that if a planet looked like it moved backwards or something, we'd call that retrograde. But now my point, and I want to bring to this about watching Orion in the sky tonight, and what my observations have been here recently, is Orion has been, when I went outside earlier, it should have been higher in the sky. So that's what I mean. It's late getting up. Okay. At this time of the year, Orion should be overhead a lot sooner, or over the zenith of the uh, celestial, the bodies above us. But anyway, and so I also noticed that I had to literally go outside and walk away because Pleiades was like over the house, which is a strange place for Pleiades to be. And everything just seems too far north, and I've talked about this before, in that it seems like the Earth has rolled south for all the planets and everything to be moved north. And it's also the way that the stars are moving across the sky. That's definitely have changed, because when and just before I started this video about 15 minutes ago, I walked outside to look and see where everything was before I did this update, to make sure that that I was like current with this observation. Is that I noticed that Pleiades was way up overhead. I mean, too far up, if you will, and setting more towards the northwest than west, which is odd in itself. In that 2 months ago, it was setting in the southwest. Really strange. So in the last 2 months, if you watch some of my previous videos, you will have noticed that I've talked about how low Orion was in the sky and how low the Dog Star was, but it seemed like it's where the Dog Star seemed like where it's supposed to be. Now, the other thing that seems weird is the celestial ceiling, if you will. It seems twisted because the Dog Star is higher up in the sky with Orion when it seems like the Dog Star, Sirius, should be lower and Orion should be twisted different. Just saying, it's just an observation. And so I was out there early this morning and I saw Venus, and I'm not sure what the other planet was, but they're, oh boy, are they bright? Let me tell you there. So next up on the topic of discussion is hyper. And as far as the Earth wobble is concerned, it's just interesting that everybody wants to blame this on the magnetic North Pole. And there's a lot of other things and a lot of other factors that make the Earth wobble and what creates this wobbly. But I've noticed several other YouTube channels are using graphics and videos and so forth and discussing the wobble of the Earth and how it's increased and all that kind of thing. And well, if y'all been following me, I've been discussing this for a while. So I'm glad everybody else is caught up with this. But just know that this isn't a new thing. This has been going on. Okay. And should we be worried? There's not a dadgum thing we can do about it except be prepared. Be prepared with warm clothes, be prepared with extra food, be prepared with batteries, because the cold weather is freezing lines, people are getting cut off. If you have electric heat, for example, you need to try to figure out another way to heat with propane, with natural gas, with wood if you can, if you're in an area where you can. Well, I got a wood heater sitting over here that when I get done doing this video here, I'm going to crank it up. We had rain last night, so a lot of the wood that I have is wet or at least damp. We had a good sized rain this morning, or late last night, early this morning. Anyway, and oh, by the way, concerning the rivers, for example, I've complained there for 2-3 years that we had a constant drought going on. Well, I got news. The drought seems to be over down here in South Georgia because there is water standing in my backyard again. And now it's time to go to the county tax office and say, okay, guys, you appraised my property at $2,000 an acre, which is like prime farmland. I want you to come down here on my back 12 acres and, don't wear, keep your rubber boots at home because, it's high land, wait till you walk about 10 feet and go up to your ankles in water and then tell me that swampland that I live on is worth $2,000 an acre. But anyway, that's a little complaint, a little dig to the tax commissioner's office. But anyway, tax assessor, excuse me. So on to the hypersensitivity. Now I've been checking in with my local, I'd say, local folk and with other folk too, YouTube channels and others about, what about the energy coming into our solar system? And everybody pretty much agrees that, yep, we've got some high tuned cosmic energies coming in. The Schumann resonance about 12 hours ago was not exceedingly crazy off the charts, but it was off the charts. And so the Schumann resonance is definitely coming in. We've got coronal holes on the sun. We've got ejecta coming off the sun, which is spewing some magnetics our way and having a lot to do with how the Earth is acting and reacting. A few days ago, for example, the aurora borealis on the north was just like, it was just cold. It was kicking butt. And that means that we're getting a lot of cosmic energy hitting our magnetosphere around the Earth. And that's what makes the aurora borealis so bright. And also that dips down so low into the upper United States and Canada. That would also suggest that the planet may have rolled north. However, let's say this, with all the stars and everything, it seems that we have rolled south. The planet has. That's why Orion is so high in the sky. I mean, it's like right up over there, like way out of whack tonight. But it's been there consistently for the last 3 or 4 nights. So the thing I've got to say about the Earth wobble, kind of sort of in conclusion with this particular report, is the wobble seems to have slowed down as far as it every 3 or 4 days it being out of whack. It seems like it's taking longer for the wobble to take place. Where there for a while it seems like every 3 or 4 days, like Orion's over here, now it's over here, now it's back over there. It's slowed down. So it seems like Orion's coming up in basically the same place. And it's a little higher in the sky, it's a little late, and those are just my own observations from here, but they seem to be more consistent, which leads me to believe that the Earth wobble has slowed down. Except it seems, the frequency of the wobble has slowed down. Hi, I Station. Yes, slower motion. Absolutely, Zed. Absolutely. Although the Earth seems to have rolled farther south, if you will, so that these things are far more above our head. That seems to be more true, but it's taken us longer for us to like go back down. So I agree with you, I Station Z. We're at a slower motion. We're still wobbling, but it doesn't seem to be near as quick, fast, slower motion. Right, Zed. All right, so on to the next topic here. I want to talk about hypersensitivity. Now, this goes along with the shaman journey that I've been talking about. So I might kind of do, hey, Melanie, good evening to you as well. So this second part of this video, or the next part, if you will, has to do with some of the shaman training, and also and has to do with hypersensitivity. Now, one of the things that have been discussed with many folk that are in touch with ET and so forth, and who are, stay in contact with their higher spirit, we all have a similar kind of feeling about things, and are warning about what the fourth dimension is going to look like. And things are going to be more sensitive. Colors are going to be brighter. We're going to be, even us old fogies are going to be able to hear sounds and things that we may normally have heard before, or paid attention to, or just been aware of. Being able to see the veil being lifted. Hello, Amazing Grace. Blessings to you as well, Amazing Grace. I got your video. I got your email late today, but haven't had the opportunity, Amazing Grace, to go out and look at them yet. So just wanted to touch base with you on that and say thank you in advance. Well, after the fact, but also in advance. So Melanie, Amazing Grace, and I Station Z, thank you very much. But going with this hypersensitivity, one of the things that's been has been described is that people's senses are going to be hyper. And you say, well, okay, well, Hawkeye, what would be, a shaman's sense of hypersensitivity? Well, let me give you just a little bit about some basics, for example. So a shaman in training who's just sure enough, new to the scene, if you will be asked to sit quietly. And then the shaman who will meditate with the trainee, apprentice, if you will, and say, all right, now I want you to quiet yourself inside, and I want you to just listen to what's around you and tell me what you hear. And so it's like, well, what good is this? Well, the good of it is the shaman might say, do you hear, and might tap him on the shoulder and say, do you hear a noise over here on the ground? And the person might say, what noise? Well, I was listening to something over here. Okay. Tell me what you hear around you. Do you hear something? And point, so the shaman may sit beside you or in front of you, depending on what it is, to observe where you're pointing. And you say, okay, well, I hear something over here down right. okay, or just on back of me, or up in a tree, or whatever, and say, well, describe what the sound is. And so the apprentice then will describe, okay, well, I hear a crunching sound, or I hear a cricket, or I hear a buzzing, or whatever the sound may be. And you say, well, Hawkeye, what good is that? Well, because when you learn to be sensitive to things, your hearing, your eyesight, your smell, your taste, but mostly your ears and your eyes, although smell does definitely come in there, especially if you're out in the woods and you're a woodsman. You better have your sniffer going, I'm here to tell you, because you can smell musk, you can smell bird droppings, you can smell different kinds of plants, and which will give you what the fauna and the flora of the area that you're in, the smell of flowers and so forth. But to the point, your eyes and your hearing are the two most sensitive that we need to pay attention to at this particular thing. Because, I mean, well, you say, well, we can taste things better. Well, okay. That's like getting a shock of sugar or something. It's like taking a spoonful of raw honey and, well, boy, that sweetness will hit you, right? But to the point, but when we say, well, how do we know our hearing is going to be more hypersensitive? Well, when you learn to be a shaman and you learn to be, out in nature, which if you're going to be a shaman, you just got to do. You go to wherever the woods are and you listen, and you shut out all other things. Now, I've had discussions about this before, in that, some people say, well, I can't slow my mind down. And I tell them, people, one thing you need to do is let your mind race. If your mind is racing and you're trying to meditate and you're trying to do everything that you can to shut it off, you're wasting your time. You're going to spend 30 minutes trying to, well, I don't want to think about that, or so you just need to just let that kaleidoscope, that Rolodex of stuff, just flip flop by and just sit back and enjoy it. Let it run. Because until this background noise in your brain has a chance to flip through it, get out of your head, you're never going to be able to sit still. So a lot of things that you need to do then is allow the kaleidoscope of crap in your head to go by, and just focus not on any particular item, but just the fact that you want it to flip by. Just go on. Don't hesitate. Rather than fight it, let it go. Because once you quit fighting it, it will go on its own. And be 2, 3, 5 minutes later, you go, well, the kaleidoscope quit. But if you try to focus on stopping it, you'll spend your whole meditation period trying to stop the thoughts. I know it's almost like a oxymoronic kind of thing, but it does take practice. But I've had this issue for a long time, and Spirit came to me and they said, "Let it run." And I was like, "Yeah, but I want to stop it." And they go, "No, you got to let it run, Hawkeye." And the more you try to hold these images and thoughts, or whatever happened in the day or your work, just let it. Don't let it. Of all the things you do is you don't focus on the the crap that comes through your brain. But if anything, you want to speed it up, say, go ahead, get going, get it up, get yourself out of my brain. Okay. Next thing, hypersensitivity. So first off, you want to close your eyes. That helps, unless you're doing a focus with a candle, for example, which is a different type of, meditation, whatever. But if you're doing an outside in the nature thing, you want to close your eyes, and you want to see with what a lot of people call your third eye. And I hate to use that term, the third eye, but in a way, that is what it is, because you're seeing with your mind. Now, I did a video one time before on there are some children that they've been testing, and adults as well. They put on a black mask that it's sort of like those sleeping goggles that people will wear that have to sleep during the daytime. Well, some people wear them at night as well, but anyway, which I just find appalling. But I do get the idea where sometimes I just have to cover my eyes with part of the sheet or the pillowcase or something anyway. So I get the idea of having something over my eyes. but it's not something that I have to have. Anyway, but these children, and there's some YouTube videos on it, and way back 6 or 8 months ago, it's in my liked videos, which I got 1,000 of them. So, but it is in there. And I would like to find that reference again. But anyway, so what they do is they put these blinders on these children, and ask them to look with their third eye. And so there are kids who are literally can walk around school all day long with these blinders on, read the blackboard, be able to tell who's in the room. They're able to read text with these. They're not a mask, but they're not goggles either. But anyway, eye patches. They're pirate. No, they're not pirates. But anyway, um, so it's like it teaches them to look with their third eye. It's amazing what these kids can do. I don't there's a word for it, but I can't remember the name of it. Oh, but look it up. It is phenomenal what these kids can do. And adults are harder to teach this because they're adults. They went through life and they with only focusing with their two eyes and barely listening with their ears. So, but anyway, now I bring this up because I've had discussions about this on how to meditate and on how to practice doing out of body travel, uh, however you want to, astral projection or astral projection and astral walking, dream walking, if you will. And you have to use this part of your brain to see with. Now, as a machinist, as a mechanic, I mean, I've worked on all kinds of automobiles and all kinds of different machines and things. And I don't give a dead gum what kind of machine you're working on. There's going to be a nut and a bolt or a screw or something that you can look at, but you can't look at it and see it at the same time. You can't use your fingers and look. It's like I've used the expression, if anybody knows inside a car or under the hood of the car, where the transmission and the engine bolt together, especially on inline type, older type cars. There are a couple of bolts up at the top, and I've replaced, clutches and pulled engines and so forth. And the ones at the top of the engine are always the most difficult to get to. And you can't see it. You can look up there, but then you got to lay on your back and squinch your arm up in there, and then you got to go with this arm and try to do this, and trying to get the washer and the nut on the end of the bolt or whatever without losing it, dropping it in the grease and the grime on the engine and whatever, or the transmission, is just like, and boy, you talk about being one fussy and mechanic to crawl up underneath from a car trying to get a nut on a bolt after 30 minutes, and your arms all cramped up, you got dirt in your eyes. And so I learned a long time ago to trust my fingers. So knowing about this, um, astral projection and so forth, and being able to see without my eyes, I would look at where I needed the nut and the bolt to go, or the washer, whatever. And I would say, okay, use the force, Hawkeye. Now, I say this, and I'm not joking, because you use the force to see. So you take the nut and the washer and you put it on the end of your fingertips, and you weave your arm and your hand up in there. Now, there's another thing to this too. I think because sometimes the nut and the washer are so difficult to hold on to, I actually magnetize the end of my fingertips. There are times when I should have dropped something going through all that mess, and I didn't. And I realized it's psychic magnetics that's holding these things together. So you put them up there, and here's the thing. I got so good at this and all I had to do was just like look once. And I'm bringing this up for a reason. But you bring that nut and that washer up there and put it right on the end of the bolt. You just look once, and then rest, and then relax your thoughts, relax your brain, because it already has figured out where this thing needs to go. And also, I would always kind of think of the end of my fingers like little radar. sonar, something like that, radar, I guess, because it'd be above water. But anyway, but to the point where I could zero in on these things. And the more I relaxed myself and said, okay, fingers, all right, hand, go find the end of this, rather than, oh, am I going to find it? How am I going to get it up there? Oh, I'm going to drop. Eh. When I stopped all those, well, what if I drop it? I can't hold on. No, I changed my thought pattern, and then I got so good at this. I There were a lot of times, because I've worked on other vehicles before, I knew about where it was, and my hand would always go there without having to have any kind of mirrors or special stuff. And people going, "How in the hell do you do that?" And I say, because I can see with my fingertips. And they're like, "Oh, that's bullshit." No, you asked me how I did it. And I just told you, I'm seeing with my fingertips. I'm allowing my fingers to do the walking, talking, and looking at this stuff. And so it's like, I've freaked so many people out over the years with, you can't get the nut on. Oh, it's impossible. Give it to me. Take a look at it and go, okay, my brain's already seen the pattern. It already knows where this thing is simply by one glance. The brain connects it all together. So when I allow my brain to put the nut and the bolt on together in some odd place you can't see, people just go, I just don't believe you could do that. Well, but that's the point. You don't believe you can do it. And I just say, well, it's just in an odd place. I need to figure out how to do it. Not can I or can't I, or, my train of thought is, well, that's in a weird place. How do I do it? Not, oh crap, I'll never get that off. Because if you spout that off out of your mouth right away, then you're not going to make it in this. So what has this got to do with shamanism? It's the hypersensitivity of things. It's when you can lay your hands on the ground and just let your fingers touch the grass. When you could let one finger is touching I don't know, in some sand or some something, and you just let your fingers absorb energy, absorb it through the palms of your hands. When you're leaning up against a tree, and if you're in the right position, you can feel the energy of the tree, and all the cells and everything going up and down through your backbone and through your spine. It's amazing. But you have to understand and kind of see it with your third eye, if you will. You have to feel it and see it with your spine. So it's like when I sit down next to a tree and I ask its permission, because that's just the kind of thing that you should do, is that I do a visualization of the cells running up and down the tree. So I just say, okay, I'm going to share my energy, the cells in my body that are wiggling and moving and doing this kind of thing, with the tree, my aura, and then allow it to happen. That's a hypersensitivity. And you say, well, what does that mean? Well, going back to the hearing thing, sit down and then just listen. And you say, well, I can hear off in the distance. Well, part of the training that you need to do, things that are off in the distance, you you can hear them, but you don't focus on them. It's like I've got really good peripheral vision, but I'm looking at the camera right now. But when I go like this, I can see my hand over here. So it's a training exercise. You want to look forward, but you want to be able to see your hands on both sides of your head, because if you need to turn your brain, it's sort of a hunter's thing, an outdoors thing, to be hyper aware of your surroundings. Because what if a bird flies into view, or what if it's a bear coming up down a mountain or something? You want to be able to not be scared. It is part of our fight or flight routine, in that a deer is always looking. Well, if I go into the woods, I'm a deer because I'm always looking, and I can see on either side of me, and I'm aware of what's behind me. I'm allowing my senses to go, do you feel something behind you, so that you can turn around and look? Because sometimes you'll walk down a trail and an animal will be waiting for you to go by. And you can walk 10 paces down a trail and stop and turn around, and a rabbit might go by. So there's different things. But when you allow your senses to go beyond what your normal run of the mill, I don't know, car noise or outside or, other kinds of noises that are going on. Zed, you're gone, I see. Just stop by to say hi. Got to go finish up a few things. You'll be back. Okay, Amazing Grace, all you folks. Zed says, David, you most certainly have walked a walk. So great to find you and the good folks here. Blessings to you, Zed. But with that said, so going on with this, you have to allow yourself to see and hear these things. So when you close your eyes, envision where you're sitting, envision what's in front of you. So when you close your eyes, you can still see the picture. And if you're good, if something comes by or you're in a park and somebody walks, runs down the trail or something like that, you can actually see this with this third eye or with your mind's eye or with your awareness. Now, for many years, I worked with blind people and folks with mental and physical handicaps. And I always was curious, how do you blind people see? How do you know what to stop before you get to the curb? They're looking with their mind's eye. So blind people already know of this awareness, but they can't necessarily describe it to you. So they may be blind, but they're not. Their hearing is more acute. Their vision up here is more acute. And it's just amazing because I'm like, how do you know there's a sign there? Well, I can see an outline. But you got your eyes are rolled back in your head and you got sunglasses on and you can see the sign as good as I can. And I got decent vision. How are you doing that? Well, I just can. Third eye. So go talk with some blind people. You want to figure out something? Just sit around and just ask them some questions. Well, how do you do that? How does it look in your head? Describe what you see, and or the sensation or something like that, and you'd be amazed at what you can pick up. Now, one of the things that the brain does, it stores all this energy and all this information. So now I can sit here and I'm doing this. I can see my fingers on either side, and I would ask you to practice some of these things on your own. Pick a room that you're very, don't put anything down on the floor, but allow your brain to take you through the living room without shoes and toys and stuff on the floor. Um, and just go to the kitchen and then turn around and then go back, without opening your eyes. And I know you're going to be tempted to cheat once in a while, but here's the point of this. Your brain, especially if it's in your own house, your brain knows this way back and forth across the floor better than your eyeballs do. And if you allow yourself to walk the walk, if you will, then you'll be able to get back and forth to the kitchen and, with no eyes open and not, bump into anything as long as you don't rearrange the furniture. Helen Keller. But anyway, so the next part of this is that what is this hypersensation? Well, folks are going to be able to see things with their eyes closed, and that's going to kind of freak them out. So moving into this next this 4D dimension that we're kind of getting our feet with, what to expect. Practice with your hearing. Now, I keep going back to the sight, but hearing is important as well. But for example, let me stick on the awareness part. Now, I live out here in the country, and there's a lot of deer that run around out here on around these plantations and so forth. And it's 7 miles to town that way, one way. Hey, Quartz Quantum, blessings to you. And the other direction is 17 miles into Moultrie, and that way is 20 miles into Thomasville. And I've hit two deer almost in a similar place coming outside of Moultrie. And actually, I hit one deer and avoided two, making it three in the same dead burn. I mean, within 100 yards of one another where these deer cross the road. And but one of the things that I'm always got on is my deer dar. And people goes, "How did you know?" And I'd tell people a half a mile before I ever got near the deer, "Slow down, there's deer up ahead." "How do you know?" And then they go, "Holy crap, there's deer there." And I'm like, "I told you." And I don't know where I get it or get it from, except that it's hyper awareness. I send out, like, if they're in my little brain, "Okay, dear," when I get in the truck and it's dark, well, daytime too, because they'll jump out in the middle of the day as well. But you can normally see those. But to the point, if you're driving down the road and you don't are not aware of things that flash, move, or whatever, then you're like, "Well, damn, I'm just driving down the road." Me, I'm always looking. I mean, I don't even consciously think about it anymore when I get in the truck, and I go driving somewhere. My hyper awareness is turned on, not to the point of being freaky, but I live in the country and there's turkeys across the road, and sometimes there's farm animals that get loose and things, and you just got to keep an eye out. But if I'm just like, oh, moseying along, deer comes across, truck gets smashed. My front end of my truck is still messed up after the last deer, and I tried to stop. And I slowed down because I knew I was coming up on a spot, and son of a biscuit eater, if a six, well, actually, it was about a 12-point buck jumped out in front of my truck and ate the front end up, bent the bumper down to where I couldn't even move the truck off of the highway. The bumper was hitting the tire, so it wouldn't even roll. It was, and during a pouring rain. So, but my point to the deer thing is that I project my senses and say, "Okay, anybody out there, I want to see you, hear you, whatever." And I can catch these dadgum deer. The other night I was coming home from the store and I just let off the gas and I was like, "Deer." And within a quarter of a mile, there was a deer just starting to cross the road and two in the ditch and one on the other side. So one had crossed and there was one on the bout and two on the side getting ready. And I slowed down and watched them cross. And well, the one and the other two backed off. But to the point though, I was like, well, my deer dar still works. My deer radar is still working. And so it's because I allow myself to see ahead. Now I'm also like, got my awareness going. But the thing is that if you allow your hypersensitivity to go beyond where you're looking, you can see things that are a half a mile down the road in the dark that aren't even there yet. And it also, it's sort of like sometimes I've gotten a tap from my spirit guide saying, "Dear, slow down, dear." And oh, okay. And if you put yourself on alert, you'd be surprised. I mean, I shock myself all the time when I'm driving because I go, "Ooh, dear dar, foot's off." I mean, my foot comes off. I don't even think about it anymore because when that little trigger hits my head, dear, my foot comes off the gas immediately because I'm like 98% right when I feel them, and it's like, hang on there, you know. But what does this mean? It means that I've allowed over the years to let my psychic energy go in front of the vehicle. And it's not just me. I'd be riding down the road with my friend. We talking. I'm not necessarily looking ahead, but I'll go, "Slow down, dear." And she go, "What?" And she know my friend just called before I started this video, and I was like, remember, um, hey, Quartz. I had said hi. Hey, Breaking Dawn, and Melanie as well. Hi, everybody. How have I been, David? Oh, Quartz. I've had a couple of rough days, but I think I've been off to class or something. It's been kind of an interesting being knocked out, but a lot of information like this afternoon is just like unraveling out of my head. It's like this needs to be a topic for discussion. Like what I'm talking about right now, the hypersensitivity. And because that's one of the things that some people are going to have difficulty. The other thing is that if you wish to be a shaman, you need to expound upon these your own senses, because how if you can't extend your aura out to protect yourself from running into a deer at 50 miles an hour or more. If I'm in deer territory, I'm sorry, I'm just not going to be in a hurry, because I've hit a deer at 60 mile an hour and I've hit him at 45. I'd much rather hit him at 45. Just saying, because they'll flip right up and come through your windshield, and a 250-pound deer will do a lot of damage at 60 miles an hour. Just saying. But anyway, um, but the awareness is so much more. So when I'm out on the ocean, for example, I used to have a 14-foot little skiffy thing for two or three people, little day sailor. And I mean, you're like this far off the water or in the water mostly, sort of like a surfboard with a with a sail. But anyway, been out in the bays and off the coast, of the Panhandle of Florida, and I'm trying to think of the state park down there. But anyway, it's off of Apalachicola and off Alligator Point. I've been sailing out there, and between the island and also in the Gulf side when it was not so choppy. But anyway, and down in Florida and out in the bay between Tampa and St. Pete and all around out in there. So been off around Dunedin Beach and Honeymoon Island back in the day. So I've spent a lot of time on the water back in the day, the Gulf. And my point of that is, even out in the open ocean, your awareness that there's nothing there. Are you sure? I've had porpoise come up. There's a thing that you can do. They say that you can do, and if you slap the top of the water, like, you got to slap it. You don't make a splash. You just slap it. And that if there's a porpoise anywhere nearby, they'll come by and check it out. And I've done that so many times, and it's like, what? And the porpoise come up and look at you, and they're intriguing creatures, to say the least. But I've seen other types of fish and manta rays, and when you get a manta that goes up underneath, and you see a wing on this side and a wing on this side, and it's as long as your 12, 14-foot sailboat, you go, oh, holy crap. And that's not talking about the tail. We're just talking about the body of the manta. But the thing is that the more that I have been at ease, now trust me, I don't like sharks, but to the point, I've been in the water when there were sharks. And do I like get out and flop around? No. But one thing that I don't do is I don't get afraid, because there's a smell of fear that will literally permeate the water. You can touch the water with one finger if you're fearful, and it's like sends a shockwave out through the water. I know that sounds crazy, but it kind of it's strange that way. But if you're hypersensitive, you can push your aura out from around you to include a safe space. And if your vibration is good, because like when I'm in my kayak, it's 10 foot long, and so there's like 3, maybe 4 feet behind me and about 4 feet in front of me. That's 8, not counting little tippy parts. So it's like you're sitting on the water, almost in the water. And when I'm down in the swamp, I'm like looking for snakes, not necessarily alligators anymore. There used to be a lot of alligators around here, but there's hasn't been enough to support the alligator population, which is a shame, actually. But to the point though, you need to keep an eye on out what's going on. Now, there aren't near as many water moccasins as there used to be, but there's still a lot of water snakes and things. And I don't. If I see a snake or something hit the water, I want to be sure that I know what kind of snake it is. It's not that I'm afraid of the snake. I want to make sure it's not a water moccasin. If it's just a water snake, I'm good. But if that sucker's a moccasin, you need to stop, backpedal a little bit, and get something to beat him on the head with, because moccasins will attack you. They're one of the most vicious snakes I've ever seen. I mean, chase me down, they have, and tell you anyway. But it so being hypersensitive in the wild in the universe. So when I go outside at nighttime and I'm looking up at the stars, if I got me a blanket out there and I'm just like, let's watch the stars tonight. It's a pretty night, could see a long way. Allow yourself to go out into space, and that's why I just I'm sorry, but I just can't believe in the flat Earth thing, because I've allowed my senses to go beyond the atmosphere and turn around and look back. Call it psychic, projection or remote viewing or whatever you want to call it. But, when you allow your spirit to go out beyond yourself, and you don't necessarily, I mean, there are times when I know my body, I have not been able to feel my body. I feel weightless. Well, then, that's a good thing. And that's one of the hardest things for some people to do, is like, don't feel your body. Allow your body to relax to the point where you can't feel the bed. Just relax. You can't feel the bed. You're on the bed. Another thing is to regulate your breathing when you're meditating. But this isn't about this video isn't necessarily about. Excuse me, coffee break. Hi, Bob. By the way. Quartz says, oh, the universe answered my request recently, asking you shall receive. Your awareness is skyrocketing as you speak. Me too, Quartz. I love watching the stars. And to your point, thank you very, very much about that. Quartz says smartphones are a big problem, and the reason why there have been accidents. Pay attention to the road at all times, period. I don't care if somebody's calling you. That's absolutely true. And and I'm some of my friends who are my age and younger is like, don't you know you're texting? Driving down a country road at 55 miles an hour going, well, I got this. There's nobody out here. You're not watching the road. I'm watching for the deer and, stuff, farm tractors that pull out of fields and things. I mean, and it's like, and this person's, well, there's nobody on the road. Text, 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 look up. And I'm going, you've gone a mile and you barely looked at the road. You're not paying attention. And what is so important? Well, I had to answer this. Pull the F over. Don't endanger my life with this. Nothing is so important that you got to text and drive. If you look down at something and it goes, okay, hitting the okay button is one thing, but sitting there texting and doing and driving, oh, please, scare the crap out of me. I will ask you to pull over and let me out if that's what you are going to do. So, but to the other side of that, it's like, put your damn phone down, and if it is that important, pull over. Seriously, because you're not paying attention. But now the other side of that is there's a word for it where people drive down the road, and I've done it because I used to drive the same route 45 miles one way every day, and it's like once in a while I just take a different road. But to get to my house, there's only a couple of roads. There's not much deviation without going 10 miles out of your way. So, and that's just dumb, if you want to get home or get to work on time. But with that said, though, there were times when I'm like, well, how in the hell did I get to Omega? I don't remember driving through Norman Park, which was just 8 miles back down the highway. And I'm like, how did I get to Omega? Crap. Oh, shit. But I was watching the road. I was paying attention. And my brain knew where I was, but I was working on some kind of engineering problem headed to work or coming home. But most of the time it was going to work. I'd be like trying to get my head. I got to go have this meeting and this or that. So I'm watching the road and doing my thing, and I'm conducting business in my brain. And at the same time, I'm like, no, but I just drove 10 miles and I don't remember it. If I didn't have an accident, didn't get caught by the sheriff or the state patrol, but can't remember going through a town, Norman Park. But anyway, but to the point though, so there are things that our brain does quite excellent. So like as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm not I'm not thinking about is my heart pumping. It's an involuntary thing. So my thank God my heart's still working. And but the thing is that there are some things that work automatically, but our brain is conducting the the uh, the computing power. So my kidneys are working, and I'll probably have to go take a pee soon, but because of my coffee. But okay, and my eyeballs, my eyes water if I get dust. There are certain things that just happen automatically. And if we stop and think about them, oh, holy crap, it was like, oh no, I can't breathe. And one of the biggest complaints of people that I've had, and one of mine, when I first started trying the astral projection and so forth, it was that I would get so relaxed, it felt like my breathing would stop. I was afraid I wouldn't breathe. Ever get there? That's an interesting place because I was like, okay. So then I started using a technique, and there are variations of it, but it's a breathing technique, and it's very effective. So you breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth because you want the good energy going in through your nose, going right to your brain and out, and exhale the bad out through your mouth. And so you breathe into the count of 3 and then exhale to the count of 5. So, so exhaling takes longer than the inhale. And the point is to regulate your breathing. Well, so in relaxing, if you start out with a simple breathing technique, one of them, now there are variations, like I said, you can breathe in for the count of 3, count of 5, whatever. But here's the point, it's that you're regulating it. Now, I use the 3-5 technique. It just seems to work. In for 3, out for 5 seconds. Then the next step is to do that like 3 times. And there are some other old books on spirituality way before the internet back in the 60s and 70s that I read about these breathing techniques, and I've used them a bunch in varying degrees of it always works, but sometimes better than others. And I mean, I was thinking pain management. I've had, my hand wrecked, and I would just simply go into a breathing calming and be able to, not stop the pain, but quiet it, in emergency situations. So regulating my breathing is like high up there. Now I don't even hardly think about it. My brain is so used to, okay, we're going into this mode. It starts regulating my breathing automatically. But one of the things is that you breathe in for 3, hold it for 3, and then out for 5. And then you do that 3 times. Then you breathe in 3, out for 5, 3 times. And then you go to the next step, which is in for 3. I think you go to 5. So you're just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nothing, fanatical, but just allow your body to do this sequence of counting. 1, 2, and you'll just 5 is that's a really deep breath, but you also need to take it into your lungs and into your diaphragm. So, as a lot of singers or, some musicians will do it, especially if they're a wind instrument, you suck as much air into your lungs, but that's not near as much air as you can hold. You suck it down into your diaphragm, as people in chorus and singers and so forth learn to do, and folks in theater. But with that said, so you learn how to take, if you're going to breathe in for 5, then you got to like, I'm on 4.5 and I'm like, I'm full unless I open up my diaphragm. So these techniques are helpful for the body in whole, but it also helps to bring an awareness that I'm controlling my breathing. Through just a few minutes of just doing this regulated breathing without any kind of hoopla, I'm just regulating my breathing, relaxing. You can do it driving down the road. But you hold your breath for 3 seconds, and then 5 seconds, and then 10 seconds, and then 15 seconds. So 3 to 5 counts in, and then for every level of of breathing exercise, you increase it as you get better. So you don't hold it at all for the first 3 times. Then you hold it only for 3 seconds for the next three, and then you go back to not holding it. The next time you do it, do this for a week. Then in the next week, you go up to 5 seconds, because now you've increased your lung capacity and now you're using your diaphragm. So all these things are important in learning how to be able to be hypersensitive in your own reality. Now, other people are going to get blindsided by some of this stuff because they've had their nose stuck in a phone, or they're the electronics is blocking. And I gotta say it, the electronics is blocking the brain waves to folks' brain. I mean, the Wi-Fi and stuff, I have to shut this computer down and just turn it off, because I got to have, even though the Wi-Fi, it's plugged in most of the time, but I can shut it off at my leisure. Go over and unplug the damn thing. I don't just turn it off, I unplug it, along with other electronics in my house. And so you should do it for yourself, because the electronics, I don't care what kind of study, they do affect you. And what kind of house you live in, how old it is, what kind of wiring, there are a lot of other factors in this, but the simple fact is electronics and voltages do affect us, period. So get yourself away from them so that you can allow your own natural body electricity to work the way it should. I'm looking over here at the corner. That's the modem right there. Actually, the green lights in the background. It looks sort of like an alien crawling around back there, but that's actually the modem. But anyway, um, so the awareness of touch. Now, I gave a brief little description about being able to put a nut on top of a bolt that you can't see. Well, there's also the tactile. What does it feel like? Now, with blind students, we would teach them, we'd put out sandpaper, for example, and it wasn't to trick them, it was to teach them how to feel the difference between things. I've tried to read Braille, and I have no idea how these people do that. I've tried. Man, I don't get it. I guess I would just be an idiot when it comes to being blind and using Braille. Then the folks who do read Braille, oh my God. But the thing is, they've trained their fingertips to be able to read with their fingers. And it's not so much the dots, but it's the pattern the fingers learn. It's like seeing the word fun. FUN. You see it so many times, you don't even have to say it in your brain, or pronounce it, or whatever, that you know what the word is. It's fun. But when your fingertips, when you're learning Braille, you learn that certain characters are this when you feel them. So it's like you don't try to read the individual dots. You realize that these 3 dots here say fun. And you go, oh, that's fun. And you just skip right over the rest of it. And so it's amazing. I've watched, blind people read Braille, and they can read Braille faster than I can read print. I mean, unbelievable. How do they do it? They use this technique that I'm speaking of, looking through their fingertips. And you say, well, Hawkeye, that's bullshit. Go watch somebody read Braille. You sit down and try to figure out them little dots and thingies with your fingertips. Now, what we used to do with the blind folk, or visually impaired, mostly severely, but you'd put out 3 different types of sandpaper. And one would be, like 500 grit, like, oh my God, it just feels like rough paper. And then you give them an 80 grit, which is like got bumps all over it, and it feels like the surface of the moon. If that's what it feels like. But to my point though, so you give them a range of here's very fine, oh my God, you can't tell it's sandpaper, to oh my, this is really rocky. And so it's like, okay, here's this. Now here's 120 grit. Okay, feel the, yeah, okay. Now here's a 200 grit. Oh, okay. Now here's 500 grit. Oh, and so they get used to the different tactile feelings. So, and some of the things that we had was, it's hard for a blind person to run a bandsaw, but they can sand the crap out of something. And so you teach them, how to feel the ridges around a piece of wood and what type of sandpaper to use for a finish. If you say, okay, Larry, one of my clients is Larry, that I who is a blind student and also mentally handicapped, by the way. But I'd say, okay, Larry, that needs a 200. Okay, Mister, he do this number sort of like a Ray Charles. He go, okay, Mister No, okay, Mister No, okay, 200, 200, okay, Mister No, and he'd put down what he had, and he would feel and go, this is it, right? And when I first was working with him, I'd have to go over and visually go, yeah. But I also got smart so I could see him across the room. And when there's 15 or 20 people that you're supervising, would put a little color code like the red. I could see if he had the red one, then he had the 200 grit. But just saying, so I wouldn't have to go over and look at the paper from across the room. But so anyway, so we don't do these things. We take because if we're using all five of our senses, we don't stop to pay attention to the hypersensitivity of our fingertips. We don't close our eyes to walk around a room, for example. One seminar that I went to one weekend many years ago was they made you put on blindfold and walk around. Now they allowed you to see it. They set up like a maze of chairs and tables. And there was always somebody nearby, so nobody got some people kicked a chair, but they were told careful. But anyway, so and they were asked to go blind for 3 or 4 hours of that day and have somebody be their guide. And the way, and then you would swap with the person who was your partner, and then the person who was your guide for the morning portion of the thing, that you would be their guide for the afternoon portion of the thing. So you got used to your partner, whoever it might be. And so you had to learn to do it like with a stranger. There were times when the um, instructors would say, okay, change partners. So whoever was the blind person, they got a new lead, a lead person. And so how to hold onto the elbow, how to guide, how the whole idea of how to walk and how to be in pace with the other person, how when you get to stairs or just the whole object of the thing. And that weekend literally opened my third eye when I learned that these folks could get around, with blindfolds on. And some people were like, they took to it in 20 minutes. They were walking around like they were blind themselves. However, I learned later on that these people had practiced closing their eyes and trying to understand, what does a blind person feel when they're trying to look? And when you understand that this third eye business starts coming out and you go, oh, holy shit, this stuff's a lot more real than people want to talk about. But unless you work in the field with blind people and or deaf, now deafness is a whole nother factor in that. But when you sit down and use your eyes closed to see what's around you, that's big time shaman lessons. When you sit and listen to an ant walk across the leaf, when you can listen to a caterpillar munching on a leaf, or, a really small insect, you know, when you can sense something crawling with your eyes closed during meditation, and you open your eyes and go, oh my God, there's a beetle over there. Oh my God, a bird. In my mind's eye, I just saw a bird fly into that tree, and you open up, and sure enough, there's the bird. And the only thing I can say about this is, how do you do it? Practice. And the biggest thing is believe it, because, oh my God, it's true. And we all have our degree of learning in this. But as the fourth dimension is coming up, we got our tiptoes in this thing really well right now. As these our senses become more hyper, if you will, and I'm using hypersensitive, probably a lousy way to explain it, but it's not. What else can I use? Extrasensory? Nah, see, that's going beyond. However, the hypersensitivity and extrasensory perception is related, because as you allow yourself to be hypersensitive, you will also become more psychically more open to the universe. You'll be able to hear your, guardian angel. You'll I I say this in jest, guys. You'll be wanting them to shut up. It's like, okay, I got it, guys. They know I'm joking, but to the point though, it's like, wow, whoa, I got a connection here that I can't hang up on these folks, and it's like, so be careful with what you wish for, and some things like that. Um, the sensitivity of things, as we allow our hypersensitivity to expand, and I say challenge, but ask you all, if you've not tried some of these things, and you're just now becoming aware of some of these things, or maybe my conversation with you is like, oh crap, I've kind of sort of known about some of these things, but nobody sat down and had a conversation about it. I can absolutely tell you that it's real. I mean, and you just have to experience it for yourself. But you got to do the work. You got to do your homework. You got to understand that I'm going to do these breathing techniques. It's going to slow my whole body down. I'm going to allow these, while I'm doing the numbers and the breathing, I'm going to let my mind go nuts with the kaleidoscope of pictures and things. I'm going to allow these things to run out, so my senses will become hypersensitive, so that you will allow your brain. And you got to believe it. If you go like, wow, I don't know if it's really going to work, don't, please just say, listen to the universe. And the reason I say that it works is because there are so many other people like myself that have experienced similar or the same types of things. It is very real. I mean, just Edgar Casey. I mean, the Sleeping Prophet. Other folks who did, Dolores Cannon. There are a lot of folks out there that have used their hypersensitivity in the spirit world, in the astral plane. But you got to start on the ground level. You can't just, I keep saying, you can't be jumping off the high dive into, a pool of water if you've never seen water before. There's things you need to understand. But it is absolutely necessary to practice it. You must. And the best thing to do is just, before you go to sleep, take a few minutes and regulate your breathing. Allow the kaleidoscope to go. Allow your body to go into this. Allow your, senses, that starts getting you. And a lot of times you'll have a better night's sleep, kind of thing. Especially for those people who have trouble. And allow you, because your brain's already taking care of all these things while you're asleep. It knows what to do. Rely upon your brain. So as you allow let's see, how do I put this? Your brain already has the information. It's like when I look down a road, I've been down the same road a gazillion times. So all my brain has to do is like 2 seconds of visual, a quick picture. It knows where I am. It knows where there are bumps in the road. It knows to swerve a little to the left or a little to the right because there's a pothole. Different things, or where there's known deer crossing the road. My brain already knows these things. I don't have to think about it. But what I do have to do is allow my brain to show it to me. It's like, okay, when I get behind the wheel, all right, brain, let's keep an eye out for stuff. All right, we're in tuck mode, keep an eye on stuff out there. And it's not, but I I had to consciously think about it when I first started doing these things 30, 40 years ago, or some of these things longer than that, for the last 55 years. And I'm not joking. I mean, since I was 11 or 12, I've been doing some of these things. So I'm not trying to brag about this. It's just plain fact. Um, so allowing your senses to smell, if a critter comes into a clearing, if you're just sitting there like me, I'll just go out in the woods and just find a place and just, oh, this looks good, and sit. Now I've got my camos on. It's cold tonight, and I turned off the heater so I could do this video. But I'm okay. But to the point though, I do have my long johns on. Um, but so I'll just go outside and sit down. Daytime, nighttime, doesn't matter, and listen to what's around me. And one of the things that I did, it was an experiment several years ago, as I'm I've got different headlamps, right, and just put them on and go out. And I started using the red ones with the red light, not the flashy ones, but just the constant red, because your eyes don't dilate down. The next other thing is if you're walking in the woods, you should wear the light on your belt. Don't put it on your forehead because it'll make you night blind. So when you want to see things, see it in the red spectrum, because in theater we use red lights mostly, or purplish or the dark blue backstage, because red lights, when you come off a stage, the red the or come on stage, the red lights don't blind you. You can walk right off the stage with bright lights and walk into the red lamps on backstage, and you'll be able to see. It's a weird thing about the different colors. But with that said, though, so you practice with different colors, you know. So if you're out in the woods or something, you take red lamp. Wow, something just zipped across the screen there. There are no bugs. It's too cold for the bugs to fly in here tonight. It's like 58 degrees here in the house. That was weird. Okay. Could have been a fairy, you know. And I mean that sincerely. High energy beings going on right now. Um, so, what does this mean to you? Well, do you want to be a more aware being? Do you want your being to be more aware, if you will? So you must allow these things to happen. But once you start practicing, once you understand that your brain, my brain, it doesn't matter. Whether we see it through the third eye, we see it through these two eyes, whether we see it through our ears, whatever the sensation is, and by seeing with my ears. Um, Fairy person, thank you, Don. Um, but for example, so I hear owls in the woods, which is common around here. So and I go, well, there's one down there, and I can kind of sort of know about where he is because I've been on this section of the river. But then I'll hear one sort of more behind me. I know he's closer to the bridge, and there's an echo because of the bridge but so I can see where they are by hearing. Now, I want to bring this up because for those of you who may think that this is just plumb crazy, I worked with some folks with the Audubon Society and also with the Audubon. It's like the Bird Watchers Club of America. There's another name for it. Life has been so backwards. Yeah. Yeah, nobody really talks about this in real life. Absolutely, Quartz. And I think some people are afraid to talk about it. But, being the shaman type person that I am, first I was an outdoors person. I mean, Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and through the whole thing. But um, I became aware of things as a hunter. But once I killed a couple of rabbits and whatever, I'm like, I'm not into this kind of thing. I could do it if I had to, but I would rather not. But then I realized it was more important for me as a hermit in training and a shaman in training, was to, go out and sit and watch and see um, how quiet I could be, both in mind, spirit, body, um, and see what kind of entities would come up. Like I've had rabbits walk right up to me, armadillos come up and sniff my feet. Yes, smelly boots. Oh, and if you want to, if you're going to go out in the woods hiking, don't take a shower and wash up with whatever perfume soap that you may use, or any kind of soap, actually. Don't take a bath the day before you go in the woods. I know people are like, ooh, let me take a shower before I go outside. And let me tell you, wildlife can smell the perfume and stuff on your clothes from a mile away. And if the wind is blowing just right, you ain't going to see squat because they can smell you coming. If you smell more like a human being with a little bit of BO, don't put on any deodorant. I see some of these guys, they're so crazy. We got all kinds of deer hunters around here, and they come into town, and they're from out of town and come down here and hunt on these plantations around here, so forth. And anyway, these guys come in and you can smell their aftershave from the sidewalk, before they ever get out of the car. The reason I say that, there's a sporting goods store right beside the theater where I used to work as the well, I was the tech person for the theater building. But anyway, these guys would come in, and I mean, like Dick Cheney kind of guys, seriously. And Secret Service closed off the whole downtown area of Thomasville one time just so Dick Cheney could go into the store beside the theater and purchase some, sporting good out stuff anyway. But you can smell these guys coming, and it's like, wait a minute. So it's like, be smart about this, you got to smell like your surroundings. If you smell like some kind of perfume and you're trying to, even if you're just sitting in the woods, they ain't going to come near you because they're going to go, oh, what's over there? They ain't going over there. Something smells like man. So I had a hunting buddy that used to come up here once a year. Bless his heart, he'd take a shower and everything, and he'd put on his, his all his daily stuff to walk, 10 feet in the woods and go hunting. And I'd go, Chuck, what are you doing? No. And then he would get this. They have this deer scent that you can buy to put on, or this no scent or whatever it is, so deer don't smell you kind of thing. Just don't take a shower the day before and get some clothes out of the hamper that's kind of smelly. Yeah, that's what you need to wear in the woods with you. People put on clean clothes that just come out of the damn dryer, and it's got that dryer scent on them. Critters can smell that for a while, and it's like, well, I don't know. I didn't see anything today. I sat up here. Now they can smell your ass, literally. But anyway, but to the point that if it's like, I mentioned this the other day. My adopted grandson came by, and I love him to death, but um, I don't use a dryer. I hang my clothes out on the line. And so I don't use those dryer thingies and all that kind of stuff, right? The anti-static, whatever. But to the point, though, with that, as I got close to give Big John a hug, about a foot away, I could smell him. And it was the dryer stuff, and people say, well, I don't smell it. No, because you wear it all the time. I don't use dryer thingies. So I don't have that smell on me. But other people who do, I can almost tell by their detergent what kind of detergent they've used or whatever. And I'm like, oh, but my clothes smell fresh and clean, don't they? And I'm like, no, they smell like chemicals to me, and I can literally smell you this far away. And it's like, they go, Dave, your clothes smell like the outdoors. That's because I hang them on the line, you know. Just saying. But to the point though, people who use these dryer thingies and all, and certain other types of soaps. I use borax, which has no smell, but really good at cleaning. With some ammonia. Well, that stinks in another direction, but it's like I put some clothes out on the line yesterday, and let the rain this morning. They're probably frozen stiff right about now outside. I'll have to go out and knock the ice off of. But to the point though, then let the rain wash them off. Well, yeah, well, rain. Sometimes after rain, the clothes will smell funky. Uh, that's an odd one. Whatever's coming out of the skies, you know what I mean? But anyway, um, but people who wear wear their clothes that have had that dryer's sheets smell on them, they don't know they have it. But if you don't use them, oh boy, can you smell it? It's like years ago. Um, I was a sure enough alcoholic, not to the stumbling down all the time, but I had to have a drink every day, so that made me an alcoholic. And many days were had too many when I should have only had one or two and ended up with a six pack. But um, when I get around somebody who's been drinking and who's, like a constant drinker, their skin smells, and I can literally smell them from 2 feet away. Where other people are like, well, I don't smell nothing. Well, people who don't smoke, for example, they get anywhere near, a car or something, they can smell the tobacco, they can smell the nicotine. And other people go, well, I can't smell it. No, you're used to something else. Your senses aren't geared to that because you have been overwhelmed, or maybe you were a smoker or something, But now that I've been off alcohol mostly, especially beer for so many years, if I get around somebody that's had a couple of beers, it almost nauseates me. And I'm like, I used to smell like that. But until you get away from it and you go, oh crap, there really is a smell to that, you know. But anyway, so our hypersensitivity, some people are going to go, oh, holy crap. You mean this smelled like this all along and I didn't know it? Well, yeah, but one of my friends, she's like, oh, yeah, but my clothes smell so fresh. And I'm like, no, your clothes smell like chemicals. And but they smell fresh. Somehow in their brain they have got that this chemical smell, which smells like inside of a manufacturing plant around certain things. It's like, no, you don't understand. These dryer sheets are off gassing these toxic chemicals, and you're convinced because they told you so that it smells good. And ooh, it's good for my clothes and anti-static and all that kind of stuff. OMG. People are walking around with poison on their clothes and breathing it in, these toxic fumes. And it's off gassing. Look up and check what off gassing means. And that's what plastics are doing, So you put these dryer sheets into a hot environment and then cook it into your clothes. But it's not affecting any of us. Just gotta say. So, our hypersensitivity, our hyper awareness, these things are going to start mattering. People are going to go, ow, you know what? This dryer sheet, I thought my clothes smelled fresh. Now they smell toxic. There's going to be a ding ding in their brain that's going to go, wait a minute. This doesn't really smell good to me anymore. And you know what? I can't believe I got used to this smell. And I walk in the store like this, I'm like, I've used, a deodorant, never use an anti-press, press, press, antiperspirant. For some reason, I can't say the word. Don't do it because it closes off the pores under your arms. And when I stopped using an antiperspirant, perspirant and just stuck with deodorant, I quit having hives under my arms, and there are a lot of other things that went along with that. So there are things that we put on ourselves every day that just make our bodies, we're absorbing this stuff, and it's affecting what other people would call as a hypersensitivity. So when I'm talking about smells, people go, "Well, I can't smell that." No, because you've got this smell of a dryer sheet on you. And no, you can't smell that because I'm standing a foot away from you. I can smell the dryer sheets on you, on your clothes. I'm sure you can't smell what I'm trying to describe to you. You'd have to take off your clothes and take it and scrub down with some kind of, mild detergent, ivory kind of soap with no stink on it in order to get that stink off of you. It's in literally the dryer sheets are embedded is being embedded in the skin. Antiperspirant. See, I can't say it. I can see it there, Quartz. Antiperspirant. I for some reason I can't say that word this morning. Oh my God, that's just weird. But anyway, so anti you get what stop sweating. Yeah. Don't use it, please. If you're using it, stop using it because it's unnatural. We're supposed to sweat. Okay. Um, I used to carry an extra t shirt because I sweat so much. It'd be 70 degrees in the office and I'd be sweating like a pig. English is a very weird language. Yes. Yes, it is, of course, along with some other languages. But anyway, um, so with that said, it makes sure that like your environment, if you want to be hypersensitive and you can't get outside, then what I would do is I'd say, well, can I hear the clock ticking? And it's like I can hear, when I was upstairs, I could hear this downstairs clock ticking because I made myself hyper aware to it. I want to hear the clock, and then there were times when I'd try to go to sleep, and I've got some insomnia or whatever going on, and all I could hear was a freaking clock ticking, and it's in another room. How can I hear? Because my ear is like I tuned into it, sort of as a mantra to go to sleep, right? Tick tock, tick talk, and get into it. Doop, 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 doop. But anyway, to the point though, it's like, so then I listen, I can hear stuff outside. I can hear a helicopter coming from 5 miles away. I mean, there's certain things. Now, they're noisy when they fly around here because they're low to the ground and the beaters shove the noise into the ground and I can literally hear it through the floor in my house here. But anyway, with that said though, um, understand that there are things that some people do in their regular everyday life that they've become accustomed to that really aren't necessarily good for them in the long run because it's closing off their hypersensitivity of their other senses. So, too much noise around you, shut things off so that you can become hypersensitive to other sounds. Now, I don't know what's going on at the moment, but my ears are like ringing. It just changed frequency. It's almost like there's a frequency going back and forth through my brain at right now as we're speaking. It started over here and kind of went in the middle. It's going back and forth between my ears and my head. It's kind of annoying. But anyway, as we speak, uh, accustomed to things that the media wants you to buy instead of what you need. Quartz, you know me, I've had that conversation before, and I even brought it up to my grandson, and I said, and I was actually praising him in that, I'm so glad that you're not caught up in this worldly possession thing. It's all right to have some money. It's all right to have a cushion. It's all right if something breaks or something to buy yourself something new. But he wasn't all about designer jeans and not about, having the fastest car or the prettiest that not there. Does it function? Can I afford it? I mean, practical things. And I'm like, yay, yeah, you actually got some brains here. But at the same point, I was saying, of all the things we have to do, and it's brought up again today on one of my programs I listen to on Tuesdays, um, was that, there, if you're people who are attached to 3D things, we're not going to be able to take most of this stuff with us into the fourth dimension. I mean, when the outskirts, higher 3D, lower four, we know where there's going to be this fluctuation. Things are going to feel different. Things are going to taste different, smell different, look different. The colors will be different. Not necessarily off, but probably much more brighter and more vivid, if you will. Eat, buy, sleep, die is a cycle that needs to be abandoned. Yeah, Quartz, I agree with you. And one of the things that we need to remember is that we are immortal with our spirit bodies. And if you understand that this is the case, then whether or not the earth flips upside down and we get roasted or frozen to death doesn't really matter. Because if we believe in the spirit, if we believe in this higher consciousness, and that this is just one trip, I know I've been on this planet more than twice, you know, at least three times. And there are things that I just know about stuff nobody ever taught me. I can't put my finger on. But I believe I was an engineer back in the days of the ancient Egyptians, and I knew about this back in the late '60s and '70s before people discussed things. I had dreams and visions, and I had spent $150 on different books. I had the Book of the Dead. I had some really, really, really good books at the time. Hello, Rick and Delaney. How are you? Quartz, what you accustomed to the things that, yep. And this is just my opinion about how the vaccine industry is getting married to the state is a bad thing, because then they will they will know that you're going to have children as soon as your kid is born. They feel, yeah, absolutely. Um, Several years ago, when last time I went to the doctor, it was like, okay, time for your flu shot. And I was like, no. She goes, why? And I said, because I don't want the damn thing, doc. And she was like, yeah, but I gotta, because you're on Medicare, they want to know why you're not getting the vaccination. And I was like, what do you mean? And I've known my doc for 20 years. And so I'm like, doc, what the hell are they? She goes, it was a new mandate. Now, this has been 2 years ago for us Medicare patients. You had to give a reason why you wouldn't take the flu shot. And I said, because I'm allergic. I said, so what do I say? She goes, if you say no, they want a reason why. And I said, so what? So I asked my doc, I said, so what do I tell you? She goes, that you're allergic. Well, she knows I'm a crackpot and crank and a conspiracy theorist nut type person. And so she was like, I know. She goes, I've got a lot of my patients that refuse to take the flu shot. And I was like, and that was the last time, was 3 or 4 years ago. And I haven't had the flu in that time. Now I've got a little bit of a back of the throat kind of coldish thing going on here, but frick, it's been, the high has been like 52 degrees in the daytime with the sun shining, which it wasn't sunshining today. But it's kind of been miserable. And there's a lot of colds and flus and things going around. But as far as some other people that I know of, they're like sick all the time. Well, I got my flu shot. Well, and you've been sick for the last 6 weeks too. But anyway, so to the point, and I used to be the person who said free flu shots, let's go to CVS, but since I haven't had any kind of injections like that, and I used to give myself testosterone shots. Yeah, I learned how to give myself, a whack in the butt once a month with testosterone. And then I started looking at it and I was like, hang on here. What are these injections doing to me? Well, I'm not injecting myself with anything anymore. Not unless it's absolutely necessary. But to the point though, and my body feels much different. I was discussing it with my grandson the other day, the paramedic, And he was like, Pops, that's my endearment. Pops, we got potassium stuff on the, you know, for electrolytes. And hi, Mary, how are you? And Rick and Delaney, garlic, honey, ginger, absolutely good stuff for you. And blackstrap molasses. It's old maid or old something molasses has got vitamins. It's like there's a K vitamin or something in there, and molasses. And I mean, when I make a gravy or something, people would go, Hawkeye, I used to be a damn good cook at one time. And one of the things I put in my black beans and for my black beans and rice is I would take a good dollop, well, a good tablespoon full of blackstrap molasses and mix it in with my black beans while I was cooking. And people would go, "What is that taste? I can't, put my what is that taste?" And I go, secret ingredient, and it's old grandma's or something like that, old granny's molasses. But back in the day, molasses was something that they put on pancakes versus syrup. Now, don't ask me why, but they could get molasses easier than some syrups, and also cane sugar. So they would take blackstrap molasses and cane sugar for their syrup and stuff. Some folks would even use a little dollop in their coffee when they didn't have regular sugar. Use a little bit of cane sugar in your coffee or your sweet tea when you ran out of sugar. But anyway, but some of these old things were like really good for you, like I've talked about before. Having a little bit of turpentine. Go out and find a pine tree. Eat, make some people always while I'm on the quick subject, pine needle tea is great. Bring the water to a boil and turn it off. Let it sit for about a minute or two because it's still going to be 100, 190 to 200 degree water. But then you want to put normally green in and let them steep. And you don't let them sit in there. You just want the flavor of the pine out of it and pull them suckers out. So you make a weak tea. Most people who make pine needle tea ain't got a clue how to do it. And I was one of them for a long time. And then somebody said, "How long you cook?" Well, I boil the water and they're like, eh. To the point though, the pine sap, the turpentine, if you will, is helpful for your body, for your brain. It's just good for you. And so find a pine tree, seriously, make sure somebody didn't spray it with something, but, to the point. Uh, Court says the mercury levels in those vaccines is way above the safety level, along with other stuff. I agree with you. They don't even tell the doctors what's in them. Mary Wins, cool. Thank you for the instructions. Absolutely, anytime. I'm still going to do a video on medicinal plants and some homemade remedies. Like, for example, always keep ammonia. A gallon is like $1 at the dollar store, maybe a buck and a half for a gallon of just straight ammonia because you don't want the flavored kind, but you no soapy stuff, just plain ammonia. And you say, why, Dave? Well, it's because you can actually take a half a teaspoon of that and dump it in a 4 to 6 ounces worth of water and stir it up, and it's good to clear a headache with. Now, there are some old timers, and I've got a book. His name was Tommy Bass, and the book is called Tommy Bass and Home Stuff. Anyway, but he was a pharmacist for years around Gadsden, Alabama. And I'm going to look for the book and read some of the remedies out. But I think the book is still in print. It's not a very big one, and you can buy it as an ebook also for a couple of bucks. But anyway, Tommy Bass, he's got all these. He came up with all these home concoctions and sold them, and a lot of times just gave them to the folks around Gadsden, Alabama, just back in the day in 30s, 40s, and into the 60s. And then a friend of mine who taught me a lot about herbology and so forth over the years, um, turned me on to Tommy, Tommy had just passed away. But one of the biggest things Tommy Bass was all about was put a little bit of ammonia with your in a glass of water. It's just, and if you if you're having trouble breathing, what's in smelling salts? Ammonia. There are so many things around the house, so it's like I'm hypersensitive to anything with bleach. And if I walk into a bathroom where somebody used bleach and it's got that smell, I can't. I go in, hold my breath, pee, and I'm like running to get back out of there. It'll literally make me pass out. But ammonia will wake me up. So if I'm having a little bit of like, "Whoa," all I got to do is just open the lid of the bottle of ammonia and just kind of, until I catch a good whiff of it. I don't stick my nose down in it, but just get a good whiff of it. It's the same thing as smelling salts, but it opens up the pores in your brain. It can take a headache away. It's amazing. Um, and how long would a gallon of ammonia last? Just take a whiff of it if you got a headache. Try it out. I know it sounds silly. For a long time, I was like, this Tommy Bass has got to be nuts. Some of them home remedies are really good. But anyway, so by doing some of these things, so if you and ammonia is a natural thing, more so than Clorox bleach. But turpentine, natural, I mean, if you go out and find a pine tree or make some pine needle tea or something like that. So and if you go to a pharmacist and get turpentine, you will get the usually a little bottle, yay big kind of deal, and it will be pharmaceutical grade. In other words, they've cleaned it up. But if you know what you're buying now, it's very difficult to find the right turpentine if you don't know what you're talking about. And you can go to the hardware store and get turpentine, but you have to get the natural turpentine. And then you got to if it says anything other than turpentine in the can, you don't want it. But it's hard to find that kind of turpentine anymore. You got to find an old timey store. But anyway, um, what's the ratio again, please? Um, I'm Yes, Mary, you can do both. My point is that you can allow the vapors of the ammonia to get right in your nose and right into your brain if you've got a headache. And all you got to do is just you know get close to the open lid, and just when you'll know when you get a good sniff of it. But now with the water as as a sort of like a tonic, if you will, a half a teaspoon, and if it's I'm thinking of the little bottles that they would just take and pour a little one of those little tiny capfuls into yay much water. Just stir it around, and sometimes they'd take. I mean, just they dip a spoon into the molasses, just the end of it, so there's just a little bit dripping off of it, and maybe some honey, and stir it up in there. So you had this mixture of a dash of ammonia, I mean, a quarter teaspoon, no more than a half a teaspoon in a glass of water, but just a small amount because it mixes in with the water and whatever. And it's the vapors and also the molasses. You're welcome, Mary. Um, but always start off with a smaller dose because you can always take another dose. But people are like, "Oh no, that really tasted wet." You're trying to take too much. Understand and learn what a tincture is. It's just a dab. A tincture of this, a tincture of iodine is like a couple of small drops. Now, something else too, and I've been testing this out on myself, and it's like if you're not getting enough iodine in your body, go down to the store and buy a bottle of iodine. Now, I'm not suggesting that you drink it, but I am suggesting you can pick a very porous place on your body and put a drop, and your skin will absorb it. So if you've got something around, and back in the day, the things that were in, and I still have them in my medicine cabinet, is a bottle of iodine with a dropper and a bottle of methylate and black drop draft cream. Okay, ichmethol is what it's called. It's literally like tar in a tube. But the thing is that shit would just about cure anything. So these old timey um, remedies, still in my book, work better than some of the brand new triple ointment. And I'm not trying to bring it up or down, but this triple ointment stuff, that you get from the store. This is okay, but I can go out and get some pine tar, off of a pine tree outside, and a little bit of I've got some molasses that's probably 8 years old. Now I don't eat it, yeah, although I can, but I use it. I use this little bit in the bottom of this jar for making poultice with. You mix it with a little dash of baking soda, and the baking soda and the molasses makes a really nice paste. Court says I wanted to live during the era of barter and trade. Let me tell you, Quartz, it's still going on. I still barter and trade with people to this day. And you got to find somebody that's willing to do it. And I mean, I've even bartered with some doctors. Hey, look, I'll paint your, and a doctor friend of mine at one time wanted to replace his front door. So I said, fine, if you'll see me, I'll replace your front door. Now he made better in that than I did as far as labor. He saw me for 30 minutes and it took me a half a day to replace his door. But to the point, I was happy because I couldn't do it any other way. And but and I got a friend out of the deal as well. So anyway, so with hypersensitivity and all these other things going on, understand that we can tune into them, but at the same point, are your senses being blocked by something else? So in order to let some things in, you got to make sure your environment's as clean as you possibly can, of noise, of sounds and things. But once you get into the practice of it, you'll I guarantee that the hypersensitivity of the self will manifest itself in in your psychic energy, in your aura, in your understanding of the universe. These small things that I've discussed here now for damn near 2 hours. And thank you all for those of you who are still hanging out. Quartz, the world would change too much if everyone stopped using paper money and go back to barter and trade. Something better than central banks have done. Absolutely. What I look at is regional things. Like if you're in South Georgia back in the day, there was, certain things you could do because you were in South Georgia, you know, and it's like the folks that live in around, oh man, I can't remember the name of the town now in Mexico, but they're highly prized for their silver. They can't grow food, but they've got silver out there, yin yang. So they're like literally giving this silver away to trade for anything. I'm, and usually the barter is the money. But to the point though, they've got all the silver. Right, you're in the northwest, right, Quartz. Um, you're in the Yakima Valley thingy, right? I got you. I remember. Yeah, I had a friend of mine that lives out there. She lives more in the Seattle area now. She moved west, but grew up around the Yakima Valley area. Um, but so anyway, so with that said, though, it's very important. Yep, Spokane Valley. Yep, I remember. Thank you, Quartz. But the thing is remember this very very plainly. Believe it, because if you just closed your eyes and can get around in the dark within your house, then you already know that part of this exists. Well, I went to the toilet and didn't stub my toe. Then your brain already knows where it needs to go. Understand that the brain takes a snapshot all the time of what's going on. And when you allow the brain to show itself to you versus you trying to force the memory, oh, well, am I going to run into the chair? Just let your brain take you there. You have to allow it. You got to believe that it can happen. Then you got to allow yourself to accept it, if you will. I know there. I had a big fight with trying to learn how to see with my fingers, and then when I realized I was trying too hard, that my brain already knew how to do it, that the reason I couldn't do it was because I was trying to force it. But when I would lay down on the the creeper and go, okay, let's put this nut on. Here we go. And I'd literally close my eyes and go, okay, here we go. And I'd visualize my little trip with my hand up to where the nut was supposed to go. And when I started allowing myself to see it versus forcing myself to see it, I could hit the end of the strut or the nut or the bolt or whatever it was damn near every time. I mean, it got creepy for me. I was like, son of a gun, I hit that thing right. Nobody can see me do this. It's a magic trick. And other, engineers and so forth, when I was working in manufacturing areas, they would just look at me and go, I don't see how you got that. I let my fingers do the walking. My fingers do the talking. So consider every part of you, especially your skin, can feel temperature differences. I've walked through the woods before and you go through a spot that's a cold spot, and it's like, well, if you weren't aware of your senses, then you would go, what was that? Or hot spot or warm spot or a something spot. So as you allow your senses, when you close your eyes and allow these other things to happen, then you start feeling the energy of the earth. Then you start feeling hot spots or I've I've been able to find water. Now I can use the divining rod, the two flippy things. Um, and I learned through people who drilled wells around here because I've dug my well. And, there are places under the ground. And, the reason people can divine with a peat switch or a live oak, there are different types of trees. Usually an evergreen, a live oak really does work. Some folks like sassafras, but the sassafras trees, they're just not around anymore, but that they could find water. So you take it, and do the Y and invert it like this, and the stronger it would point down, the deeper the water. And if it would just point a little bit, that would mean the water was up close to the top. But the thing is that these people allowed these energies to flow through them. They trusted themselves. They allowed themselves to believe it. But when during this belief system of tuning in more to the energies, because you say, well, in my way, using the L-shaped copper, it's cheating in a way because back in the day they didn't have copper to do that with. They use trees. They use nature to do it. Now it is effective. I have some copper wire that I made my own. It's not the swivelly kind. You can just take a piece of copper wire. Coat hangers will work too. We snipped off some coat hangers and used them. Less effective than the copper, but that all you got to do is hold it real light in your hands and it'll turn. You don't have to go out and buy any. Not that I'm cutting anybody down with that, but length of copper, yay long. Now I've tried with different lengths, but you make a bend in it, straighten it out, and just hold it loosely in your hands, and it'll move. you know. So it's like, well, I don't know if I can afford to buy some of these. People are making them, people are selling them. That's fine if you can afford them. But I'm telling you, all you need to do is take a couple of, at least a foot long. And, how wide is your hand? About 5, 6 inches. So you come down about 5, 6 inches and you make a bend. And just two of them, but hold it loosely in your hands. Just. So anyway, but to the point though, it works really well in finding water. I've found underground streams. Yeah, I had somebody witch my well and then went back over it and witched it again myself with my instruments and found out, oh my God, I was about a foot or so off from where she had, planted her stick for me to dig my well. And so, it's a very real thing. And there are even folks around here, for example, and we're coming up on the 2 hour mark. But there are people around here in Colquitt County, South Georgia, and other places down here in the South who you if somebody got cut and was bleeding real bad, you would call these people on the phone and they would whisper a word into the phone that very few people could hear. But the people who were bleeding would stop bleeding. I mean, cut arteries, stop the bleeding. Call up such and such. They and everybody used to have such and such's number, or there used to be a thing about putting silver behind your head and leaning back, and certain things like that. It's just kind of odd, but for the folks that I knew when I first moved up here from Tampa to South Georgia, it was talk about backwoods Hickville, kind of sure enough back there in the late '60s, early '70s, and these folks would come out of the woods, and with three legs and and crutches and 15 fingers on one hand, and oh boy, you talk about some weird stuff coming out of swamps around the south. Not to say that I ain't seen some strange things up north either, but inbreeding anyway. Um, but what the important thing was is that um, so many of these homemade, we use this around here kind of thing, or it's like if somebody got burnt, there was a somebody that they called, and when Granny was on her deathbed, she'd choose somebody and whisper these words and pass it on, and it usually skipped a generation. Not that it was usually grandmother to granddaughter, not always, but it was sort of kind of skipped a generation in that, and I can understand why. Um, but so if somebody got burnt real bad, you could call up the burn person and they would speak these words. And all you'd hear on the phone was a little whisper. You never could make out what they said. And some of the stories that come up, well, my grandmother came over from Europe. She was German. And what the person spoke was a German phrase or some kind of Celtic phrase if their background was Irish. So, and in the Appalachians that I've studied and the folks that I've known up there, that stuff went on a lot up there. And them if a true old folk from Appalachia, they'll understand things that most modern day people just look at and go, don't get it. You mean you did what? Yeah. Now some of it's plumb stupid. I just got to say, you wrapped up a thing and you did a thing and you put it in an old sock and you stuck it under the bed. Eh, you know, but there might have been vapors or something else. But to the point though, some of the stuff just absolutely sounded so flat out stupid that you go, there's no way that could work. However, about the ammonia and blackstrap molasses and other things like that and making poultices, there is science behind that, if you will, versus, well, I took a clove of garlic and stuck it under my bed in my socks to get away from to get warts off my hand or something. I mean, there's some of these wild tales that are just way out there. But I gotta wonder sometimes if doing some of these things is like they didn't have any other remedy, and if you believed in what they were doing enough, then the belief is what cured them, not what they did. You know what I'm saying? They that was so strong. Well, my grandma passed this down, it must work, even though they lost, during the flu epidemic, they lost half of the family, but that's beside the point. But the thing is though, those people who do believe that they can be healed are healed sometimes without any kind of medicine. So, and the placebo effect has been done so many times. It's like there, we had this one guy, he had to have his little blue pill every day. And the little blue pill was a sugar tablet. And it was like, what? But because everybody else got pills, this person didn't. So they came up with this psychological ailment. Well, I didn't get my blue pill today. Well, okay. And somebody put a bunch of, blue pills in a bottle and made it look like medicine and said, okay, here's your blue pill. And he was as happier than a clam. My head don't hurt today, Mr. Dave. I took my blue pill. Knowing damn, I knew damn well and good it was just a sugar pill. but the placebo effect is so flipping real. It's like, what? You cured somebody by giving them a blue tablet with a little bit of sugar in it, and that's all? Yeah, a little bit of yeast and, some, a little bit of wheat flour and crush it up and they give it some food color. But anyway, to the point though, it's like, what you talking about, Willis? So, those are things you can check out. But anyway, like that movie called Limitless, when a guy takes a pill and it makes him a genius. Absolutely. Uh, Nothing is out of the realm of possibilities. Absolutely, Quartz. And this thing about being hyper aware and all the things that I've been talking about now for exactly 2 hours and 1 second has been that you must believe that it is possible. You must believe. You must accept it. And how it works, you can groan and complain and say, "Well, I want more information." And you seek that when you start opening up your brain. You'll just things will come to you and you'll just go, "Oh my God, it's true. I don't need a book. I felt it. The universe just told me a story and it makes sense to me." The only way you can do that is by opening up your heart, your soul, and all of your senses to the point of being hyper sensitive. So I love you all, Breaking Dawn. That's how they thin out the population. No more hybrids of a certain breed. Yeah, kind of, sort of. Um, and one of the other things too is as this move from third to fourth, there's also been a lot of folks who are like, wait a minute, did that person's camouflage just flicker? Did they just look like a goat to me or something? And then they went back to being a person? I've seen some things um, more on a video, but it's like the people's eyes, whether you want to call them, reptilian or not, their eyes are doing funky things. And there are facial changes around the eyes and stuff. And I go, what? Let me back that shit up. What are they doing right there? So, but anyway, so there are things that, some of these beings that are here are using a camouflage. But it's in the fourth D. So, us being in 3D, we don't see the camouflage. But some of the beings are losing their camouflage, and we're going to see them for who they are, like that movie, They Live. When you have to put on the sunglasses, only thing is, we won't need any glasses. We're going to be able to see these beings for who they really are. So that's going to be interesting in itself. Now, ET says that by summertime, there's really going to be making more of a show of being out there. So just want to pass that along to you. But the biggest thing is that continue to practice and expand your awareness. ET will speak to you. The other beings will speak to you. The ethereals, the tiny beings, the fairies and the fae, and you name it, and the pixies, and you name it. They will start contacting you, and you will just hear a whole new litany of stuff. Being able to listen to the wisp of the woods, and hey, fairy person. Yeah, the fairy person is still around here. I kind of feel. Did you see it come across the screen again? Because I'm literally, there's no bugs flying. It's too cold here in the house for anything to be flying. They're like, some insects don't fly at below certain temperatures anyway. Like crickets only cricket during certain temperatures. But anyway, hey, fairy person. Um, but anyway, so I love you all, and just continue on with the good work that you have. Thank you for hanging out with me. And as always, let's say this closing prayer. I hope that you, and I pray that you, your friends, your relatives, and all of your relations will accept and receive the healing from the universe. That you, your friends, your relatives, and all of your relations will accept and receive the healing, the wisdom, and the knowledge from the universe. And as the third time around, I pray that each one of you will continue to share and accept and receive the blessings from the universe, from the great creator and beyond. Accept these energies coming in and out of the universe right now. And some odd coloring in the screen going on right now. Don't know what's happening there. The colors are changing, fluctuating kind of deal. Um, Off my right shoulder, yeah, there's been something floating around back over here too, by the way. It kind of waves in and out. But anyway, all right, gang. Deborah, thank you very much. Thank you, Quartz. Mary, if you're still on, let me go back up here and whoever else might be on. Mary wins. Bless you if you're still here. Quartz, as always. And I'm missing somebody. Rick and Delaney Jackson, if you're still on, blessings to you and to everybody. So, lots of hugs, lots of cosmic hugs to everybody. Continue to send it out to people around the world. So, um, communicating with the fairy person. Thank you, thank you. So I'm out of here for now. Got a butt cramp and my coffee's gone, and I got a half a cigarette. I'm just for those of you might be I smoke a half a cigarette and I put it out. So instead of smoking a cigarette every time I want one, I'm only smoking a half or a portion and I'm putting them out. And I still got a pack and a half of cigarettes and I haven't bought cigarettes in over a week. So good for me. Just wanted to give you that little bit of tidbit of up to date in that each one of us has our own addictions to deal with and make sure that the goals you set you can reach because that's important right now. So start off with baby steps. That's good. Thank you. Yeah, one of these days I'm going to throw them down. I mean, it's getting to the point where I lit up a cigarette earlier and I was like, this thing just don't taste right. Uh, and so in my brain, I'm going to get to the point where it was like beer. I couldn't stand to have a beer because of the smell. I don't know. Whatever trips my trigger to stop what I do. But anyway, love and blessings to everybody. And I really do have a butt cramp. Oh, holy cow. But anyway, love and honor to every one of you. Continue to pass it along. And I promise you, as soon as I get all my books together, I'm going to do a video on uh, medicinals and herbs and things. So until later, bye ye all. And Deborah, uh, hit me up on Hangouts if you want.